I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while, and I'm going to be straight with you from the start. This is heavy. This is not easy material. If you're not in a place where you can sit with something dark and real right now, it's okay. You can come back later. But if you are ready, stick with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is one of the most documented, most horrifying institutional failures in modern British history. And a huge part of the mainstream media still treats it like a political football instead of what it actually is. A child protection catastrophe. Let's go. The year is 1997, Rotherham, South Yorkshire. A working class English town. The textile industry is gone, the steel industry is gone, not a lot left. And in that town something starts happening to girls. Girls from care homes mostly. Girls from broken homes, girls who are by the system own categorizations vulnerable. They get picked up by taxis, by men who hang around care homes and schools. They get given alcohol, drugs, gifts, attention, and then they get raped. Repeatedly by multiple men. Sometimes in houses, sometimes in cars, sometimes trafficked to other cities. Girls as young as 11. Now here is the thing that makes this story not just tragic, but criminal in a completely different way. The authorities knew. Not suspected, not were maybe starting to look into it, knew. The first reports started coming in around 99, 2000, 2001. Care home managers flagging in. Social workers flagging in. A researcher named Angie Heal, who was hired by the local council to look into the child exploitation, was filing detailed reports and warnings from 2002. She has since called it the biggest child protection scandal in UK history. And what happened with those reports? Nothing. For over a decade. Multiple reports, multiple warnings, multiple children going to police and being turned away. Some of them were arrested themselves. Yes, you heard that right. The girls who went to the police for help were arrested. One father tried to physically remove his daughter from a house where she was being abused, and police arrested him. That's what happened. In 2013, Rotherham Council finally commissioned an independent inquiry led by Professor Alexis J, former Chief Social Work Advisor by the Scottish Government. The J report came out in August 2014. And here is the headline number. At least 1,400 children were sexually exploited in Rotherham between 1997 and 2013. J called it a conservative estimate. The real number is probably higher. Victims were, in the inquiries onwards, predominantly white British girls. The perpetrators were predominantly from minority ethnic communities, specifically men of Pakistani heritage. Girls were raped by multiple men, trafficked to other cities, forced to watch rape, beaten, threatened. One girl was threatened that her sister would be next if she talked. The report found evidence of pregnancies, miscarriage, terminations forced on children. And the authorities' response to all of this for 16 years? They called the girls slags. Social workers wrote in case files that the abuse was a lifestyle choice. Police officers referred to them in official documents as prostitutes. Some officers weren't just passive. Investigations are now ongoing into allegations that police officers themselves raped victims. 3 former officers have been arrested. Those cases are going to court. That last part just came out in July 2025. Here is where it gets bigger, because Rotherham wasn't a one-off. At the time this was happening in Rotherham, the same thing, the exact same structure was operating in other English towns. Rochdale, Greater Manchester. A ring of men, mostly British Pakistani, operating around takeaways and taxis in Haywood near Rochdale, targeting girls as young as 13. In 2008, one victim went to the police. Had their attacker's DNA on the clothing. The Crown Prosecution Service dropped the case because they decided the victim wasn't credible. She was 13. She had physical evidence and she wasn't credible. The abuse continued. It took until 2012 for the first 9 men to be convicted. Since then, more trials, more convictions. As of October 2025, 61 men have been convicted in Rochdale alone. Combined sentences almost 630 years. All but 3 of the convicted offenders were Asian or British Asian. The most recent sentencing in October 2025 was the ringleader, Mohammed Saeed, get 35 years. He was 65 years old. He had been acquitted in a previous grooming trial in 2016 and still continued. Telford, Shropshire. The Sunday Mirror investigated in 2018 found evidence that up to 1,000 girls had been abused over 3 decades. Since the 1970s, same pattern. Taxis, takeaways, care homes, working class girls, Pakistani men, police who looked the other way. There were allegations of girls being murdered. Police disputed the scale. Sound familiar? The Telford Independent Inquiry found child sex crimes had been ignored for generations. Oxford, Aylesbury, Derby, Huddersfield, Newcastle, Bristol, Peterborough, Manchester, Bradford. In Bradford, a dossier compiled in 2025 claimed at least 7,975 children had been at risk of sexual exploitation between 1996 and 2025 in one city. And a 2026 inquiry by Rupert Lowe MP found evidence of grooming gang activity in 149 UK local authority areas. 149. Not 149 towns, 149 local authority areas. That's essentially the entire country. The national estimate of total victims built by scaling confirmed numbers from individual towns sits at around 250,000 girls. I want to be honest with you here. The number is contested. The methodology has been criticized. It's an extrapolation, not a confirmed count. The reason it's an extrapolation is that the data was never properly collected, because collecting it would have meant admitting that it was happening. What is confirmed by multiple official inquiries, tens of thousands of girls, decades of abuse, hundreds of towns, and the same basic pattern over and over and over. Now, this is the part that people get nervous about, and I'm going to say it clearly because dancing around it is exactly the problem. The perpetrators in these group-based grooming cases in Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Oxford, and the majority of documented cases are disproportionately men of Pakistan Muslim heritage. That is not a right-wing talking point. That's the government's own inquiries found. The case audit, published in June 2025, commissioned by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, found that in Greater Manchester, West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire, Pakistani men were significantly overrepresented among grooming gang suspects. In one Birmingham area example of 75 suspects, 62% were from Pakistani background. In Rochdale, 58 out of 61 convicted offenders were Asian or British Asian. In Rotherham, nearly 2/3 of the 323 identified suspects were of Pakistani background. Now, the data nationally is incomplete. In 2/3 of cases across the UK, the ethnicity of perpetrators wasn't recorded at all. The case audit especially called out the data failure. It said flawed data was used repeatedly to dismiss claims about Asian grooming gangs as sensationalized, biased, or untrue. Read that again. The absence of data, which authorities created by not collecting it, was then used to say, we can't draw conclusions. That's a circular trap. You don't collect the data, then you say the data doesn't support the conclusions, so nothing is done. And the case audit found that the word Pakistani had been literally typexed out of at least one children's case file in archive. Someone physically erased the word. There are people in this story who made active decisions to protect themselves from the accusations of racism while children were being raped. Now, and I want to say this clearly, as I am saying everything else, this is not an argument about all Pakistani men or all Muslims Most Pakistani aren't doing this. Most Muslims are horrified by it. There are Muslim women organizations who have been ringing alarm bells about this for years and getting ignored. This is about a specific pattern of group based organized sexual exploitation with a specific demographic profile in a specific cultural context, and about the institutional refusal to name it because naming it felt politically dangerous. The children paid the price for that cowardice. This is the question that I keep coming back to because I need to understand how this is possible. How do 1,400 girls get raped in one town over 16 years, and the institutions responsible for protecting the girls just don't protect them? The inquiries tell us why. Multiple reasons working together. Reason 1: fear of racism accusations. This one is every single inquiry. Police didn't act because they were afraid of being called racist. Social workers didn't flag it because they were afraid of inflaming racial tensions. Counselors sat on reports because they didn't want to rock the boat with a community that had voted Labour. One police officer told the father of an abuse victim when he came to report it that the town would erupt. If people would find out this. If people found out South Asian men were sexually abusing white girls. So they kept it quiet, and the abuse continued. Jay herself said in 2015 that authorities' inaction was partially about their desire to accommodate a community that would be expected to vote Labour's, not to rock the boat, to keep a lid on it. That is stunning. That's a child protection official saying the vote mattered more than the children. Reason 2: class contempt. The victims were predominantly working class girls, many from care homes. They were already coded by the system as problematic. Some had existing contact with police. They were seen as unreliable witnesses, as chaotic, as girls who made bad choices. Social workers didn't see children being exploited, they saw troubled girls making lifestyle choices. That's framing. What is documented in writing in official files is snobbery, it's class contempt, it's misogyny, and it got children raped. Reason 3: institutional self-protection. Rotherham Council suppressed reports. They threatened staff who tried to go public. They described a culture of bullying, silencing whistleblowers. The council was eventually found to be not fit for purpose and had to be replaced by government commissioners. The people running the system were not interested in protecting the system. They were not interested in protecting the children they were supposed to serve. Does that sound familiar? Because it sounds familiar to me. Okay, so it's 2014, the J report drops, 1,400 victims confirmed, the whole country is in shock. What happened? Not enough. The police launched investigations, some men went to prison. Good, that should happen. But the bigger picture, the systemic reform that should have followed, mostly didn't. Professor J went on to chair the National Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse in the IICSA, which ran for 7 years and published its final report in October 2022. The report made 20 recommendations. As of November 2024, more than 2 years later, none of those 20 recommendations had been implemented in full. Not one. Jay said she felt frustrated. That's British understatement for "I'm furious and the system had failed children is still failing them." The case audit in 2025 found the same failures still in place. Baroness Casey had previously opposed a new national inquiry and then changed her mind. She said she changed her mind because local council were refusing to cooperate. Because organizations that should have been transparent were stonewalling her investigators. So Keir Starmer announced a full statutory national inquiry in June 2025. That inquiry formally opened in December 2025, chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. It's ongoing as we record this, it's still going on. Which means we are now more than 30 years since the abuse started in Rotherham, and we're still doing inquiries. The last conviction in the most recent Rochdale trial came down in October 2025. The offender was 65 years old. He'd been convicted before. The abuse spanned 5 years into the early 2000s. The victim had to wait over 20 years to see him sentenced. 20 years. I want to talk about the media for a minute, because that's a weird thing. This story did get coverage. The J report was front page news. The Rochdale trial in 2012 was covered. It's not like it was completely invisible, but the framing has been consistently cautious, carefully worded. The ethnic dimensions in particular. The thing that was most politically sensitive was handled with the kind of delicacy that you would never see applied to other perpetrator groups. When men in positions of institutional power abuse children, priests, teachers, celebrities like Jimmy Savile, the story leads with the perpetrator's identity, their profession, their community's failure. No caveats. But we must be careful not to stigmatize all Catholics. Just, here's what happened, here's who did it. When the perpetrators are British Pakistani Muslim men organized in groups, suddenly there are a lot of qualifications. A lot of we must not generalize. A lot of prominent space given to the argument that talking about ethnicity is dangerous. Both things can be true. We should not stigmatize an entire community, and we need to talk plainly about what the data shows. Those two things are not in conflict. You can say Pakistani men were disproportionately represented among grooming gang suspects in this specific documented cases without saying all Pakistani men are dangerous. But that's not a hard distinction to make. But the media treated it like impossible tightrope. And in the process, the victim got less coverage and the perpetrator's community impact assessment. Sorry. I find that enraging. And I think you should too. Politicians, labor-run councils were the primary civic authorities in most of the affected towns. Rotherham, Rochdale, Oldham, the same councils whose officers suppressed reports, whose social workers dismissed victims. Those leadership didn't want to rock the boat with a community that voted Labour. This is a political failure, and yes, it has a political dimension that is specifically labeled Labour. I'm not saying this to make partisan point, I'm saying it because the inquiry found it in plain language. Votes and community politics shaped how officials responded to child rape. That's what the evidence shows. And then on the other side, conservative government after conservative government inherited this and also did not act. The J report came out in 2014 under a conservative-led coalition. The final IICSA report came out in 2022 under a conservative government. As of 2024, the 20 recommendations still hadn't been implemented under the Conservatives. So this isn't a Labour problem. This isn't a Conservative problem. This is a systemic cross-party generational failure. A failure of political will across 20 governments to actually hold themselves accountable to the most vulnerable children in the country. Both parties spent years pointing at each other and neither of them did the work. I've been sitting with this material for a little while and I want to tell you honestly what it does for me. I work on a channel about abuse, about systems that don't protect you, about institutions that look at your suffering and decide your comfort is more important. About people who watch harm happen and choose silence. I know what this feels like. I know what it feels like to be disbelieved. I know what it feels like to have the evidence, to have the receipts, and to have people in authority look right at it and decide the politics matter more. These girls lived inside something I can barely imagine. Multiple men for years. And every time they reached out to police, to social workers, to the institutions they were supposed to be on their side, the institution looked away. And then later, the same institutions held inquiries and wrote reports and said, we failed. And then didn't implement the recommendations. And they held more inquiries. And the girls, now women, some of them in their 30s and 40s, are still waiting. The word accountability means something, or it means something actually faces. It means someone actually faces what they did, and in the story, apart from the men who went to prison, and there should be more of them, almost nobody has faced it. No council leader went to prison, no police officer yet has been convicted, no government minister have been criminally responsible for the policy choices that prioritized votes over children. That's the part I can't make peace with. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The grooming gang scandal is not a right-wing talking point. It's also not something you can dismiss by pointing at Tommy Robinson or Elon Musk and saying it has been weaponized. It has been weaponized. It is also real. Those two things coexist. The victims are real, the numbers are real, the cover-up is real, the inquiry findings are real. Written by government-appointed investigators, published by the British government, and on the official record. But what's happening right now? A national statutory inquiry, formally opened in December 2025, is still ongoing. More trials are happening in Rochdale alone. Cases are still going through the courts right now. This is not history, this is current events. If you want to follow this, the KC audit report is publicly available. The J report from 1014 is publicly available. The IICSA final report is publicly available. Read them. Form your own view from the primary sources. I'll see if I can link some of it in the description. And if you're someone who experienced this, who lived inside this, I want you to know that I see you. And I'm sorry for how long the world took to even say the words. I'm sorry. Stay aware, stay protected, stay real. Hit a like, subscribe, share the video. I'll see you next time. Peace.